For today's club preview, we'll look at the Brisbane Lions. So Brisbane Lions, their overall relevance for Supercoach in 2022, I think will be moderate, as the midfield they'll be incredibly relevant, and maybe a few players we can touch on in other positions that potentially relevant, worth discussing at least. So we'll go through that. But yeah, how do I think the Lions will go in 2022? I think they should finish top 4. I think the list is pretty good, pretty even. Maybe Joe needs a bit of help up there with their injuries, but I thought they were the third best team in 2021. So no disrespect to Port, but they played a lot better against the Dogs in the final series than Port did. But nonetheless, I will discuss the Lions. So first, we'll start off with premium defenders. So I've got two here, Daniel Rich and Harris Andrews. And while you're mentioning Andrews, he actually averaged 95 points for the year. But we'll start with Daniel Rich. So Rich is a player we all pretty much ignored. I barely saw him in any teams. Given, I think, 32-ish, something around that age, you don't really know when the cliff is going to be, especially he had issues the year before with injury. But yeah, his back half of 2020 was pretty massive. So something we all sort of missed, but again, given his age and injuries, probably we thought there were safer options. This year, has that changed? I don't think I'll pick him. He's probably priced at his max. Maybe an upgrade target later down the track. But yeah, he had probably his best year in 2021. Is he going to repeat that? I'm not sure. But yeah, the new rules definitely suited Rich, and yeah, he had a great year. But I think maybe the Lions surround Rich with a few more distributors down back, because I definitely think they lacked a bit of pace off half back, and something they will address, I think. So see how that goes, but not as a starting pick for me, but we'll look at him as an upgrade target maybe. But I genuinely prefer players with a bit better durability. But yeah, he was durable for a long time, just wasn't for 1 or 2 years there. And then Harris Andrews, key defender, but yeah, definitely note as a starting pick. Given his role as a key position defender, he'd need to be incredibly cheap, like May was when he was 400k. After he got concussed, where he has all these games around the 50-60 mark, or even I think it's more the 70s around that mark as well. So yeah, I think I had a quick look at it before, and there's too many games, too many sub 80 games, put it that way. So that means he'll drop in price, and yeah, probably going to ignore him anyway. Probably not going to be top 6. So that's enough on that. The midfielders are where the real discussion is for the Lions. So I have Neil and McLuggage here. I'll start off with Lockie Neal. So I did get a bit roasted for, I'd said Lockie Neal was an avoid, then I put him in my starting team after an article came out about him. But with Lockie Neal, I think it comes down to the reward is incredibly high and the risk is probably moderate if he has a full preseason. So the risk, the reward probably far outweighs the risk. So for that reason, I think it would probably be smart to pick him. Having said that, it is a bit worrying that he had calf issues. I mentioned this on the podcast we did with Dr. Supercoach. He had calf issues in the preseason. 5-6 months later, they popped up again. And when you're 28, 29, we saw, I think Deledio had similar issues. Hooley later in his career. So is that something that's going to be recurring now? Or does he just need a proper preseason since he had none? So it is a slightly worrying, but for his price, I think he's too hard to pass up. And despite all his injuries, still managed to play 17 games. So he's unbelievable mindset, Lockie Neal, the way he wheels himself throughout games. So I think we'll probably end up picking Lockie Neal, but slightly concerned. But given everyone will probably have him, it will be protected by ownership. So yeah, I think we'll just end up picking Lockie Neal and probably goes minimum 110 with a full preseason. So that's probably a conservative estimate. And then there's Hugh McLuggage, super talented player. I think Chris Fagan said something in the preseason about he thinks he can go to the next level in 2022, which is interesting. Just depends what his role is. So he does get a little bit of inside time from what I've seen. If it's not, it's kind of starting on the wing then pushing up to the stoppage. But you do see him on a wing more often than inside. So probably needs, given the strength of the midfielders that we have in 2022, he probably needs a full inside role, and I'm not sure they give it to him. So he's one where we can just monitor over the preseason, see if he's just a full centre bounce mid, and then maybe look at him there. But again, in the midfield, probably don't want to stuff around. We got very safe, durable, unbelievable options in the midfield. We have to pay up for them, but yeah, these guys will probably be guaranteed to be top 10 minimum. So probably better to go an alternative route, but one doesn't hurt to watch. So keep an eye on big luggage, but yeah, very, very unlikely. But super talent, unbelievable player. In the rucks, Oscar McInerney. In an interesting one, as he did win the hardest worker at the club award at the BS Best and Fairest, which is fantastic. That's high work ethic players generally, just overall fundamentally better because they work on their craft and whatnot a bit more than others. So yeah, fan of Oscar McInerney. I think DR left a comment on one of my videos saying something about, maybe they want to balance him and Ford up forward, something like that. So that's something to keep an eye out on, and probably a bit safer paying an extra 100k or so for Darcy or Grundy. Maybe Gorn if you like that, but Darcy Grundy seems to be the popular one. But I think Oscar McInerney will be a really good player this year. I think he could possibly even push All Australian. His back half of last year, or 2021, was really, really good. Maybe a bit reliant on hit-outs to advantage than others to score, hence why his fantasy score is not as good as his Supercoach one. Sean Darcy is a bit the same, but still good around the ground though. So McInerney I'll still keep an eye on McInerney. It'll be interesting to see how much he's improved. So yeah, not the worst option, but a little risky with probably more sure alternatives. And in the forward line, the premiums, I see Zach Bailey here. I think he's too good of a forward to be used in the midfield. So I think maybe they want to give Jared Berry, maybe they want to give Dev Robertson more midfield time, plus they got Neil and Lyons, and maybe McLuggage gets a bit more. It's hard to see him getting enough mid-time, and that's what we want. But for him to average in the mid-80s, playing predominantly forward, is unbelievably good. So yeah, he's just too much class up forward. Finishing is unbelievable. We saw that in the final series. And yeah, super composed. So I think he's just too good to be used forward, and I'm not sure there's a need for him to be in the midfield, even though I'm sure he'd be great there. So it wouldn't surprise me if he pushes 90 with the slight increase in mid-time, but I'm not sure the role will be good enough, and you're going to get those scores where I think he had quite a few games I think 4 or 5 games under 60, something like that. So you don't want that. But yeah, can have those big games, kick a bag of goals, and get a little bit of mid-time. So again, it's all about role for Bailey, and not sure he gets it just yet. Now the mid prices. Jared Berry, I think, will shape our structures pending how he goes in the Amy series. So DR did a video on Jared Berry, very informative video, helped us a lot out with this pick. However, it was his durability. When I was watching, smuttered my words there. But when I was watching his video, I didn't realize how bad his durability was. So yeah, go check that out if you haven't seen it. But yeah, it's quite a few soft tissue injuries. I think shoulder injury there as well, something like that. So, and the groin injury, which is probably why he only averaged in the 50s and spent a bit more time forward. So in 2020, the Corona year, averaged 97. His CBAs weren't actually that good. They're around like 40, 50, 60% most weeks, something like that. But his scoring was wild. It was 150s and 60s, and there's no consistency there. So with a full preseason and maybe 40, 50% mid-time we see in the preseason, because he could play on a wing. Looking at his draft profile, he can play forward, he can play wing. Seems to be too versatile for his own good for Supercoach purposes. So the stance on Berry is we see how he looks in the preseason, and we see how many CBAs he gets, and we just want to hear some more good things, because he's in full training at the moment, which is great. So yeah, keep an eye on Jared Berry. But I think if he looks really good and the role is there, I think he'd be incredibly hard to pass up, although it will be tough to fit him in. But yeah, he's currently, as I've tinkered with my team, he's going to sit in my team until I'm convinced otherwise. Hard to pass up. And the other mid-pricer is Kadeen Coleman. So I don't know a lot about Kadeen Coleman, but he had a decent final series. That's just looking at the numbers. His two games in the finals, his last 2 games in the final series, they only had 2 games. 9 contested possessions and 10 contested possessions, which was a bit over 50% for his total disposals. So that is something that is very impressive for a youngster. I think he's 21, 22. He provides that speed and run off halfback, which they desperately need. Maybe Jimmy Madden would have been used there before if he wasn't injured. So 260k defender forward as well. So that's kind of nice. Very awkward, very, very awkward price. Probably competing with Roscoe for that, who has also made the switch to defence, but we'll talk about him in the Collingwood video. So contested rate is quite good. Seems reasonable talent, but very inconsistent games before that, in and out the side, put up low numbers, but assume he played a bit forward as well before switching to half back. So might have some competition there for that spot with James Madden. One that's worth watching, I think, but horrific price and very small sample size, because I think before the few games he was moved to halfback before the finals and his numbers weren't that great there, but as the finals came, got a few more games halfback, seemed to get better, but don't know a huge amount about him, but that's my research on him. So I think he's worth watching. And down to the rookies, I have 4 rookies here. So I have Harry Sharp, 193k. He's another one that could provide the run from halfback. He looked really good in the 2021 preseason. Unfortunately, really, really young, still in school, and had a serious injury. So he's 193k. It's a bit steep, to be honest, but talent is there. Massive hard worker. He used to do marathons every week, something like that. And coming off injury, it's hard to see this playing out well as a starting pick, given all those factors. But see how he goes in the preseason. Maybe gets a full preseason, buffs up a little bit. And you never know. But yeah, 193k, horrible price for second year player coming off injury. So I'll move on to Tom Berry, 171k. Was the sub a lot, but will probably have a poor role up forward if he does play. So not sure on his job security. But yeah, still young, so probably still improving at this stage. So worth watching, 171k. It's a tough price for when his role's not going to be that good for Supercoach, but maybe worth watching anyway. Darcy Wilmot, 140k. So their draft pick they took, I think it was in the first round. I can't remember. The youngest player taking the draft, which is not a good sign for Supercoach for their first year. But another one that can provide that run off half back. So does he opportunity early? Not sure. Given the fact that he's the youngest player, it's a little concerning for, it will be hard to break them around one team. Probably, you would think Madden and Kadeen Coleman are ahead of him in that role currently, but probably when they want more of a project player, I would guess. So, yeah, worth watching, but yeah, we'll have some competition for that halfback spot against players that are older, probably Harry Sharp as well. And then Eli Smith seems to be a myth every preseason. See if maybe Mitch Robinson, I think he still had that wing spot, so maybe that's up for grabs, depending on how that goes in the preseason. So apparently he's a hard worker. He stayed back for drills early this preseason, so heard great things last preseason, heard good things this preseason. It's just a matter if he plays or not. So yeah, it's been pretty tough for him to break into the team, and usually it's some sort of red flag if they can't break the team after being in the system for quite a few years. So, but nonetheless, maybe it's just because the Brisbane are, top team. They're really, really hard to break into. So, yeah, heard only good things about him, but just hasn't got the opportunity yet. So we'll keep an eye on that. So that's my Brisbane preview. Carlton, I think, is next if my alphabet serves me correctly. But yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys soon.